My name is Sloane Mercer, and up until 6 months ago, I thought I had everything I'd ever wanted. A warm little cafe on the corner of Alberta Street in Portland. A man I loved, Eli. And the quiet satisfaction that comes from building something from nothing. We called it Hearth and Hallow. It wasn't just a cafe, it was a second home for half the neighborhood. The kind of place where the barista knew your order before you said a word, where the walls smelled faintly of cinnamon and rain-soaked jackets. Every table had a story. Breakups, proposals, poetry scribbled on napkins. And every inch of that place had a piece of me in it. The hand-painted menus, the mismatched mugs I thrifted one by one. Even the logo, that tiny ember drawn inside a hollow circle. It was my sketch. I remember because Eli said it looked too fragile. But I liked fragile. I thought it was honest. For 8 years, we worked side by side. He handled the books, I handled the people. It was the perfect balance. Or so I thought. Then, on a Wednesday morning in early March, everything cracked. It started with an email. Just a routine one. A reminder from the Oregon Business Registry that our license renewal was due. Except when I opened the attachment. My name wasn't there. The ownership field read, Eli Matthews and Colette Vance. I blinked, refreshed the page, checked again. Gone. My name, gone. Replaced. At first, I laughed. It had to be a typo. A glitch. But when I called the office, the woman on the phone said, I'm sorry, ma'am. It looks like your name was legally removed last month. The new documentation was submitted by Mr. Matthews himself. I don't remember hanging up. I just remember the sound of the espresso machine steaming in the background. The hiss, like something boiling over. Eli was in the back, doing inventory, humming, like everything was fine. I walked in, phone still in my hand. Eli, I said, voice trembling. Why does the business registration list Colette as co-owner? He froze, then smiled. That kind of smile people give when they've already rehearsed their lie. Sloane, it's just temporary, he said. It's for tax purposes. She's helping with new investment contracts. Colette, the girl from the PR agency. 26, blonde, always smelled like citrus and ambition. I'd caught them laughing together once. A little too long, too close, but I told myself I was being paranoid. Tax purposes? I repeated. Yeah, babe, he said. Don't overthink it. You trust me, right? I wanted to scream. But the cafe was full. Customers sipping lattes. The bell above the door kept chiming, cheerful and cruel. So I nodded, smiled like a ghost, and went to the back room to cry between stacks of flour bags. That night, I pulled every document I could find. Contracts, receipts, licenses. Every one of them had been quietly updated over the last 2 months. Digital signatures, all under Eli's account. Mine erased, replaced with hers. The betrayal wasn't just romantic, it was surgical, calculated. He hadn't cheated on me. He'd erased me. And somehow that hurt more. The next morning, the truth arrived not in words, but in pictures. My friend Megan sent a text. Sloane, is this what I think it is? Attached was a photo. Eli and Colette standing in front of our cafe, smiling for the Portland Gazette. Headline, New owners of Hearth and Hallow promise a brighter future for Portland coffee culture. The photo was bright, sunny. Eli's arm around her waist. My mural in the background, my artwork, the Ember logo shining like a wound. They'd even repainted the front door. My favorite sage green replaced with corporate beige. The article quoted Eli. This cafe is about rebirth, about letting go of old chapters that no longer fit. Old chapters. That's what I was. An old chapter. That night, I sat in the dark of my apartment, rain hammering against the window. Portland rain always had a rhythm, but that night, it sounded like mockery. I kept replaying our memories. The first coffee bean we roasted, The nights we stayed up fixing leaks, laughing until sunrise. How could he just delete me? For days, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I walked by the cafe once, just to see it. Through the glass, I saw her, Colette, behind the counter, handing out samples, flashing that PR smile, and Eli, standing beside her, whispering something that made her laugh. My stomach twisted, my breath turned to ash. I pressed my palm against the cold glass. No one looked up. It was like I'd died and the world just kept moving. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not rage, not yet, just silence. A silence so sharp it cut. I went home and started a new notebook. On the first page, I wrote 2 words in black ink. The cafe that was. I didn't know what it would become. Not yet. But I knew one thing for certain. If Eli thought he could erase me, he was about to learn just how loud a ghost could be. And then, a message popped up on my screen. It was from an unknown number. A photo of the Hearth and Hallow sign, except this time, someone had spray painted over the new logo. In bright red letters, it said, "Where's Sloan?" I stared at it, heart pounding. I didn't do it. But someone out there remembered me. Someone out there cared. And maybe that was where my revenge would begin. The photo of the vandalized sign kept flashing in my head all night. Where's Sloan? It glowed in the darkness like a question I didn't know how to answer. I hadn't been back to Hearth and Hallow since the day Eli stole it. But now, someone else had gone there for me. Someone who remembered. By morning, curiosity beat fear. I threw on a coat, didn't even brush my hair, and drove to Alberta Street. The rain hadn't stopped. In Portland, it rarely does. It fell in soft sheets that made everything shimmer like glass. When I turned the corner, there it was. My cafe. My ghost of a cafe. And the words were still there, bleeding red over their beige-painted sign. "Where's Sloan?" A small crowd had gathered. People snapping photos, murmuring. Some even smiled. It was like watching a protest for a person who'd been declared dead. And then I saw Eli. He stood by the doorway, jaw tight, phone pressed to his ear, probably talking to the police. Colette was beside him, looking pale and panicked, clutching a designer umbrella. When his eyes met mine across the street, the world went silent. I swear even the rain held its breath. He didn't say a word, just stared, like I was some ghost come to haunt him. And maybe, in a way, I was. I didn't stay. I turned and walked away, fast, before the weight of it all could crush me again. But my phone buzzed. The same unknown number. "They erased you. Time to remind them who built it." Attached was a location pin. A cafe downtown I'd never been to. My first instinct was caution. The internet is full of strangers who claim to help. But something about it felt different. So I went. The cafe was called Rook House. Dim lights, plants hanging from the ceiling, the kind of place where laptops hum and secrets brew over pour-over coffee. I spotted a man in his late 20s sitting near the back, hood up, typing on a laptop covered in stickers. When he saw me, he smiled like he'd been waiting all along. "You're Sloan," he said, voice low. "And you are?" I asked. He extended a hand. "Nate Keller. I used to run Hearth and Hallow's social media, until Eli fired me 2 months ago." That name hit a nerve. I remembered him. Quiet, always behind a camera. The one who used to post our photos and captions like poetry. He disappeared right before things started falling apart. "You sent me the picture," I said. He nodded. "I thought you deserved to know. I didn't do the graffiti, but whoever did. They just started something big. The comments online are blowing up." He turned his laptop toward me. Reddit threads, tweets, locals posting "Ivors, where's Sloan?" under old photos of my cafe. Thousands of views. Hundreds of people asking what happened to me. I stared at the screen, stunned. For the first time in months, I wasn't invisible. Nate leaned forward. You built that place, Sloan. People loved you. Not him. You can take that power back. Take it back? I echoed, almost laughing. He erased my name. He owns everything. He smirked. Maybe on paper, but online? Stories live forever. Those words stuck with me. That night, I couldn't sleep again. But it wasn't from sadness this time. I kept thinking about the people posting my name, the community that remembered. Maybe I didn't need Hearth and Hallow to exist within those four walls. Maybe I could build something new, something louder. By 3 a.m., I had a name, the Café that was. Not a physical place, a movement, pop-up events, storytelling nights, art markets featuring the same local creators Eli pushed out when he rebranded. Each event would celebrate what Hearth and Hallow used to be, and quietly remind people who created it. But if I was going to do this, I'd need proof. Receipts, files, drafts, everything showing my work and Eli's edits. I still had backups on my old laptop, buried somewhere in a storage box. The next day, I texted Nate. You said you wanted to help. How do you feel about breaking into old archives? He replied instantly, already one step ahead. We met that evening in my small apartment. The smell of coffee mixed with rain again. Some things never changed. Nate opened his laptop, typing fast. I still have admin access to the original website backups. Before he changed the domain, I mirrored the site for my portfolio. Wait, you kept the old files? Every post, every caption you wrote, every tagged artist. You had over 20,000 followers before he wiped it all. My chest tightened. I'd forgotten how much love poured into that page. The photos of latte art competitions, community nights, local musicians. He'd deleted it all in one click. Can we recover it? I asked. Not just recover, he said. We can relaunch it, but this time, it's yours. That word, yours, felt strange in my mouth, like something I used to own but had forgotten how to say. Nate grinned. We'll make The Café That Was a pop-up series. Every post tells a story. Every story leads back to you. And by the time he realizes what's happening, he paused. You'll already have the whole city talking. I sat back, heart racing. It sounded crazy. It also sounded perfect. Still, a part of me hesitated. What if he fights back? He'll say I'm bitter, trying to ruin his business. Then we don't fight fire with fire, Nate said. We fight lies with truth. Outside, thunder rolled through the Portland sky. Inside, for the first time, I felt something close to purpose. I nodded slowly. Okay, let's do it. We clinked our coffee cups like conspirators, and in that dim light, a new chapter began. Not a chapter of love or loss, but of reclamation. As Nate packed up, he paused at the door. Oh, one more thing, he said, tossing me a USB drive. I found something in the old email server. You should see it. When he left, I plugged it into my laptop. A folder popped open. Invoices, photos, messages, personal. Inside, one email thread glowed unread, from Eli to Colette. Subject line, let's make sure she never comes back. I froze. The rain outside roared like applause. I didn't go back to the cafe for 3 days. Not because I was scared, but because I didn't trust myself not to throw something through the window. Instead, I wandered. Through Portland's endless drizzle, down quiet streets that smelled of wet leaves and espresso. Every corner reminded me of us. The early days when Reese and I had dreams bigger than rent, when we thought the world would reward honesty and hard work. I had loved him like an idea, not just a man, and that's what made it unbearable. By the fourth morning, I woke up with one thought pounding in my head like a drumbeat. If he took my story, I'll write a better one. So I opened my old notebook, the one where I used to sketch menu ideas and doodle recipes between customer orders. On the first blank page, I wrote in thick, black ink, "The Café That Was." At first, it was just a phrase, maybe a eulogy for what we built. But then, slowly, it became something else. A rebellion, a resurrection. I started reaching out. Old regulars, local artists, the musicians who used to play acoustic nights in our back room. People remembered me, not just as Reese's shadow, but as Sloane. The one who poured their coffee with a smile, who remembered their names, who stayed late to clean up after everyone else left. They were angry when they heard what he'd done. Are you serious? He just erased you? Didn't you design the whole menu? Wow. Typical Reese. The support was quiet but fierce, like embers under ash. One night, while scrolling aimlessly, I stumbled upon a small pop-up food event on Instagram. It was called Rain and Roots, a local collective that featured indie food creators, street chefs, and small cafes looking to get noticed. I sent a message before I could talk myself out of it. Hey, I'm Sloane Mercer. I used to co-own a place called the Ember Room. I'd love to join the next event under a new project. Something called the Café That Was. The reply came within an hour. Love the name. You're in. My heart jumped. That one message felt like oxygen. The next week was a blur. I borrowed a small espresso machine from an old friend, rented a stall, and used my savings, what little was left, to buy beans, sugar, and paper cups. I handwrote every sign myself, black marker on brown cardboard. The Café That Was. One night only. It was messy, imperfect, but it was mine. The pop-up was set for a Friday night. The same night, the Ember Room was hosting its relaunch party under its new ownership. The timing was poetic, almost too poetic. That afternoon, I stood in my tiny kitchen, sleeves rolled up, music low, heart hammering. Every part of me buzzed, nerves, anger, adrenaline, maybe even a little fear. Because for the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was creating. And this time, it wasn't for Reese. It was for me. Then, as if on cue, my phone lit up. Reese. I froze. For a long second, I just stared at the name. That name I used to love seeing, now making my stomach twist. Finally, I swiped to answer. Sloane. His voice was calm, almost casual. Hey, I heard you're doing some kind of pop-up thing? I laughed softly. Word travels fast, huh? He hesitated. Look, I just wanted to say, don't do anything stupid. The Ember Room's been through enough drama and… The Ember Room? I cut him off. You mean my cafe? He sighed. It's our cafe. Was. I mean, come on, Sloane. You didn't want to deal with investors or expansion or PR. You know I had to make some decisions. Decisions? I snapped. You forged my signature and handed everything we built to your girlfriend. There was silence. Then, his tone softened. The same silky calm he used to talk me down after fights. You're emotional. I get it. But making a spectacle of yourself won't help. You'll just look bitter. I smiled, but it wasn't the smile he used to know. Then maybe bitter is the new flavor, Reese. And I hung up. The rain came right on schedule that evening. Portland never disappoints. But people showed up. Old customers, baristas from nearby cafes, even a few food bloggers curious about the name. The stall smelled of roasted beans and hope. I worked non-stop, my hands steady, my heart light for the first time in months. Someone handed me a phone halfway through the rush. Hey, look, you're trending. On Instagram, Tag the Café, that was blowing up. People were tagging photos of my booth, writing things like, she's back. The real Ember spirit. Support small creators who get stolen from. My throat tightened. Because suddenly it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth. Then came the twist. As I was cleaning up, soaked and exhausted, someone handed me a sleek black envelope. No name on the front, just a wax seal embossed with the familiar flame logo of the Ember Room. Inside was an invitation. You are cordially invited to the official grand reopening of the Ember Room Café, hosted by Reese Adler and Company, and scrawled in handwriting I knew all too well at the bottom. Let's talk, Sloane. Be there. I stared at it for a long time, my pulse pounding. The invitation wasn't an olive branch. It was a challenge. And I wasn't the kind of woman to back down from a fire. The invitation sat on my counter for 2 days, unopened, yet screaming every time I walked past it. I told myself I wouldn't go. That showing up meant giving Reese power again, letting him see that I still cared. But curiosity is a slow poison. By the second night, I'd read the card a dozen times. I kept hearing his voice in my head. Calm, confident, so sure that I'd fall in line like always. Not this time. I wasn't going to attend his little party. I was going to crash it. The reopening was held at the same cafe we built from nothing. The Ember Room. They'd remodeled it, of course. The rustic shelves I built by hand were gone, replaced by sterile white tiles. The handwritten chalkboard menu I'd drawn, digitized on sleek LED screens. It looked perfect, like Reese always wanted. Perfect, soulless, and hollow. I put on a long camel coat, my hair pulled back tight, and walked through the drizzle with a small USB drive in my pocket, my secret weapon. It wasn't anything illegal, just the truth. Old photos, videos, and scanned receipts. Proof that I had created the Ember Room. Proof of who I was before Reese rewrote the story. When I arrived, the street outside glowed with fairy lights and expensive laughter. Through the glass, I saw Reese. Same confident smirk, same navy blazer he wore when we signed the lease 8 years ago. Beside him stood her, the new co-owner, Talia. Young, polished, wearing the same amber earrings I used to wear when we'd do tasting events together. The betrayal hit like a wave all over again, but this time, it didn't drown me. It burned. "Miss Mercer," said a man at the door, glancing at the invite I held. "Welcome back to the Ember Room." I smiled thinly. "Oh, trust me, you'll remember I was here." Inside, everything gleamed. New espresso machines, marble counters, wine glasses clinking in rhythm with indie jazz. The air smelled of coffee and lies. Reese spotted me almost immediately. His smile faltered for a moment, then reassembled itself like a mask. "Sloane," he said, approaching. "You came. I wasn't sure if—" "You invited me," I said flatly. "It'd be rude not to show up." He nodded slowly, then gestured to the room. "Pretty great turnout, huh? The Ember Room is alive again. You should be proud. This was your dream, too." "My dream?" I echoed. "Funny. My dream didn't include you signing me out of it." His jaw tightened. "We've been over this. You walked away." I leaned closer. "No, Reese. You pushed me out. And now you're pretending it was mutual." His smile returned, colder this time. "Look, I didn't bring you here to fight. You were a big part of this place. I thought you might like closure." "Closure," I repeated softly. "That's cute." Talia appeared then, holding 2 champagne glasses. Her voice was syrupy sweet. "Reese, honey, they're ready for your speech." Then she turned to me with an icy politeness. "You must be Sloane. I've heard so much about you." "I'm sure you have," I said, smiling. As they walked toward the stage, I moved toward the tech booth at the back, the one controlling the big projection screen above the espresso bar. The screen currently looped photos of the cafe's journey, all neatly edited, all with Reese front and center. The tech guy barely looked up when I approached. "Hey," I said, friendly. "Reese asked me to update the slideshow with the newer photos. Said to plug this in." I flashed my USB drive. He shrugged. "Go ahead." And just like that, the truth was in. Reese tapped the mic. The crowd went silent. "Thank you all for coming," he began smoothly. "Tonight isn't just a reopening. It's a rebirth. The Ember Room has always been about warmth, passion, and community, and none of this would be possible without everyone who believed in us. Us. He never said me and Sloane, just us." He continued, painting himself as the visionary who carried this place from ashes to fire. I watched, silent, as he smiled through every lie. Then, just as he raised his glass to toast, the slideshow behind him flickered. A new image appeared. A grainy photo of me and Reese, 8 years ago, covered in dust and paint, laughing under the half-built roof. The caption, handwritten, read, Day 1, our dream, our hands, our sweat. The next image, a close-up of my signature on the original ownership papers. Then screenshots of messages, his messages, admitting he was handling the paperwork. The room went dead quiet. Reese froze mid-sentence, staring at the screen. The guests whispered, eyes darting between us. Then the final slide appeared. A short video. Shaky. Real. Raw. Me, in our old kitchen, saying, "The Ember Room isn't about money or fame. It's about community. It's about people who show up for each other." Applause erupted. Not from everyone, but enough. Enough to humiliate him. Reese's face drained of color. He turned toward me, voice low and venomous. "What did you do?" I smiled, calm. "Just gave them a little history lesson. You think this makes you the hero?" He hissed. "You look pathetic. Desperate." "Maybe," I said softly, "but at least I'm honest." The photographers were already snapping. Talia stepped back, whispering something to a PR rep who looked panicked. Reese tried to grab the mic again, but it was too late. The whispers had turned into noise. The crowd wasn't listening anymore. They were talking. About me. About the truth. I left before the end. Stepping back into the rain, I felt the drizzle soak through my coat. But it didn't matter, because for the first time in months, I didn't feel invisible. The Ember Room wasn't his anymore. It never had been. It belonged to everyone who remembered how it began. As I walked home, my phone buzzed with messages, reporters, old friends, even strangers thanking me for speaking up. But among all the notifications, one text caught my eye, an unknown number. It read, "You think this is over? You just made it worse for yourself." No name, but I didn't need one. I smiled into the rain, because Reese had finally shown his real face, and I was just getting started. The first pop-up for the cafe that was set for Saturday. The 1-year anniversary of the day I signed away my rights. The irony wasn't lost on me. I chose a small corner space in the Pearl District, raw concrete, old brick walls, and a skylight that leaked when it rained. It felt poetic, like the city itself was crying with me. The night before the launch, I could barely sleep. My mind raced with questions. Would anyone show up? Would people even remember me? Us? After Milo and his PR campaigns painted me as the ungrateful ex? I stood in the middle of the room at 3 a.m., surrounded by coffee beans, string lights, and handwritten notes from former regulars who'd found out about the event online. I picked one up. "Sloan, your coffee got me through my divorce. Thank you." And for the first time in a year, I smiled without bitterness. Saturday morning. Rain, of course. I arrived early, hair damp, hands trembling as I set up the espresso machine I'd borrowed from a friend. The smell of ground coffee filled the air, familiar, comforting, like muscle memory. And then, one by one, people began to walk in. Regulars from the old cafe, a few old employees, even strangers who'd read about it on Instagram. They hugged me, brought flowers, shared stories. It wasn't glamorous. No fancy decor, no influencer cameras, just community. Real, raw, human. I recorded small clips, capturing the laughter, the stories, the warmth. The footage would later become part of the short documentary I planned to release. The cafe that was. Around noon, I saw him, Milo, standing in the doorway with an umbrella and that same charming smile that once melted me. The room fell silent for a moment. Even the espresso machine hissed like it was holding its breath. "Sloan," he said, trying to sound casual. "This is impressive." I turned to him, keeping my voice even. "It's not yours anymore, Milo. You don't get to call it impressive." He stepped closer. "You're making a mistake doing this. You're dragging old history into the public eye. It's not good for your image." I laughed, cutting him off. My image? Milo, you erased my name from my own dream. I'm just giving people the truth you tried to bury. He sighed, glancing around at the crowd watching us. This isn't over, Sloane, he whispered. You're playing with fire. I met his eyes, steady and unflinching. Then I guess I'll burn beautifully. That night, the videos of the pop-ups spread faster than I could have imagined. Clips of customers sharing memories, photos of my handwritten signs, snippets of my confrontation with Milo. Someone had caught it on camera. Within hours, it was trending locally. Mahas, the cafe, that was key justice for Sloane. People started sharing their own stories about being cut out, silenced, underestimated. My inbox flooded with messages. Journalists reached out for interviews. And Milo? He panicked. He released a statement calling my pop-up an emotional stunt. But the more he spoke, the more people saw through him. Screenshots and old emails from staff surfaced online, proof of how he manipulated everyone. I didn't even need to say anything. The truth spoke louder than I ever could. 1 week later, I stood in front of the same pop-up space. The lease was temporary, but the movement wasn't. People kept showing up. They wanted more. More coffee. More stories. More honesty. So I decided, the cafe that was wouldn't just be one event. It would be a series. Pop-ups across Portland, each one telling the story of people rebuilding after betrayal. Not just about me anymore, about all of us who lost something and found strength in the ruins. As I looked out at the rain streaking down the glass, I whispered to myself, "You took my cafe, Milo, but you'll never take my purpose." The lights flickered. My phone buzzed. A new message. It was from Milo. "You don't know what you've started, Sloane. Stop before it's too late." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Outside, thunder rumbled like the city's warning. I took a deep breath and hit record on my camera. "Let's tell another story," I said quietly. By the second pop-up, I realized the cafe that wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to everyone who had ever been cheated, replaced, or erased. People who walked through my doors and whispered, "Thank you for saying what I couldn't." But with attention came backlash, and Milo wasn't done. He launched a counter-campaign, glossy posters, sponsored posts. He even hired a PR firm to reclaim the narrative. They called it the new blend. His slogan, "The past is bitter, the future is sweet." It made me sick, because every sweet image was built on my recipes, my handwriting, my cafe's soul. I tried to ignore it, at first. But one morning, I woke up to hundreds of notifications. Someone had leaked a fake story about me, claiming I was the one who cheated, that I'd stolen company funds before leaving. My stomach twisted as I scrolled through the comments. People I didn't even know were calling me a fraud, a jealous ex. Milo had always known how to spin lies so smoothly that they sounded like truth. I called my best friend, Nadia, who had been helping me run the pop-ups. "Don't read the comments," she said immediately. "It's textbook smear tactics." "I can't not read them," I whispered. "They're rewriting my life." There was silence for a moment. Then Nadia said softly, "Then let's write it back." That night, we met in her tiny apartment. Laptop screens glowed like campfires as we drafted my official response. But instead of a defense, I wanted something different. "I don't want to fight him on his level," I told her. "I want to tell the truth on mine." We built a video essay, part confession, part documentary. I called it The Bitter Truth. It opened with me standing in the same rain-drenched cafe space, looking directly into the camera. "My name is Sloane Mercer. A year ago, I lost everything I helped build. Not because I was careless, but because I trusted the wrong person. This isn't a story about coffee. It's about erasure, about what happens when someone rewrites your story without your consent." The video showed old photos of me and Milo in the cafe, smiling behind the counter, serving customers, decorating for Christmas. Then it cut to interviews with former employees, customers, Even a supplier who confirmed my name was on every early contract. No rage, no slander, just truth. Quiet, documented, undeniable. We uploaded it at midnight. By morning, it had 500,000 views. The comments shifted. People began connecting the dots. The handwriting on the chalkboard menus, the recipes, the design. All mine. A local journalist reached out for an interview. By that afternoon, 3 major Portland blogs had published pieces titled "The Real Story Behind the Café That Was." For the first time, I felt seen, not pitied, understood. But with every wave of support came new threats. Anonymous messages, fake reviews on my pop-ups. One night, someone threw a brick through the window of the temporary café. I found it the next morning, shattered glass and a note that said, "Stop before it gets ugly." I remember standing there in the rain, staring at the damage. A part of me wanted to quit. I was tired. Tired of fighting, of defending, of waking up every morning wondering what Milo would do next. But then I saw a little girl across the street, maybe 10, holding her mom's hand. She pointed at me, eyes wide, and said, "Mom, that's the lady who stood up for herself." And just like that, I knew I couldn't stop. I picked up the brick, set it on the counter, and taped a note above it. "This is what fear looks like, but we're not afraid." That moment became iconic. People took photos, posted them, tagged me. The image, me, standing behind the counter with the brick in front, spread across the internet. Even national outlets picked it up. The cafe that wasn't just a local story anymore. It was symbolic. But then, a week later, a message arrived that changed everything. It wasn't anonymous this time. It was from Milo's new partner, the woman he'd signed the cafe over to. "Sloan, you don't know me, but I need to talk. Milo isn't who you think he is. He's planning something worse, and you deserve to know." I froze, rereading the message again and again. Was it a trap? Or was she actually reaching out? I looked out the window. The rain hadn't stopped in days. Portland felt heavy, drenched, electric, like the city was holding its breath again. I typed a reply, "Meet me, somewhere public, tomorrow." She responded within minutes. "Agreed, noon, Hawthorne Bridge." My hands trembled as I set my phone down. If what she said was true, this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about something darker. I took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of fear, and something sharper beneath it, determination. I woke up that morning to the sound of rain tapping against my window. That familiar Portland rhythm that used to make me feel melancholic. But not today. Today, the rain sounded like applause. I checked my phone. Notifications were exploding. Every major Portland food blog had picked up the cafe that was. Articles called it a love letter to the city's lost soul. They mentioned my name, Sloan Mercer, not as a victim, but as the woman who reclaimed her story. I almost didn't believe it. After months of sleepless nights, tears, and anger, the tide was turning. Then my phone rang. It was Harper. "Sloan," she said, her voice trembling. "You might want to see this." She sent me a link. It was a live stream from the Haven Café, the cafe that used to be ours. And there he was. Ethan, standing in front of the camera, giving a shaky statement to a local journalist. He looked pale, tired, defeated. Behind him, the cafe was empty. No customers, no staff. Just him and the echo of what he'd stolen. "I made mistakes," he said, staring down. "I thought I could rebuild without her, but it turns out she was the heartbeat." My hands were trembling, not from anger this time, but from disbelief. People in the comments were relentless. They called him out for everything: the lies, the manipulation, the erasure. They demanded he give me back what was mine. And then, he did something I didn't expect. He said, "Sloan, if you're watching, you won." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. because deep down I had spent months preparing for revenge, but not for closure. I met Harper and Jonah later that day at our newest pop-up event. It was raining harder, but the crowd was larger than ever. The smell of espresso, cinnamon, and wet pavement filled the air. Harper grinned. "You did it, Sloane. He's finished." But I shook my head. "No, we did it." The event turned into something magical. People were sharing stories about what the cafe that was meant to them. Old couples, baristas, musicians, they all spoke about community, about how a small cafe had once felt like home. As I listened, I realized something. The revenge wasn't just about making Ethan lose. It was about reclaiming everything he tried to take from me. My name, my story, my worth. Later that night, when everyone had left, I stood under the canopy of fairy lights, watching the rain shimmer like silver threads. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. I whispered to myself, "You took my cafe, but I took back myself." And somewhere, I swore I could hear the espresso machine hiss, like the city itself was whispering back, "Welcome home, Sloane." A week after Ethan's public apology, Portland felt different. The city was still draped in gray clouds and drizzle, but somehow, the air felt lighter, as if the whole place had exhaled. I sat at a corner table in the cafe that was final pop-up, sipping a cappuccino I made myself. The foam was imperfect, but I didn't care. Harper and Jonah were laughing across the room, surrounded by familiar faces, baristas, old customers, even a few people from Ethan's old staff who'd jumped ship to join us. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about what Ethan had taken. I was thinking about what I had built back. Then, unexpectedly, my phone buzzed again. An email. From a property agent I'd spoken to months ago, back when I was too angry to dream about the future. "Hey Sloane, I know you were looking for a space that feels like you. One just opened up. Old brick, tall windows, right by Hawthorne. It's yours if you want it." I stared at the screen, my heart thumping softly. Was I ready for that again? Was I ready to open another cafe, this time under my name? That night, I walked through the rain to see the place. It was small, cozy, and full of potential. The air smelled faintly of sawdust and rain. I could already imagine it. The warmth of conversation, the soft hum of espresso, the quiet buzz of a community finding itself again. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel scared. I felt steady. As I stood there, I remembered the version of me who once believed that love and business could coexist, that passion was enough to keep someone loyal. She was naive, but she wasn't wrong to love. She just didn't know how strong she really was. The next morning, I signed the lease. The new cafe would be called Second Brew, a nod to second chances, second beginnings, and the bitter sweetness of survival. Opening day came a month later. The line outside was longer than I'd ever seen, and at the very front stood an elderly woman who had come to every single one of my pop-ups. She smiled, handing me a bouquet of lavender. "For good energy," she said. As I took it, I caught a reflection of myself in the window. Older, maybe, but lighter. There was no anger left, just calm resolve. Later, as the first cup of espresso poured from the new machine, Harper whispered, "Feels like the end, huh?" I smiled. "No," I said. "It feels like the beginning." I looked outside. The rain had stopped. The city glistened under a pale beam of sunlight, and I could almost feel the universe wink back. Revenge wasn't the fire that burned me anymore. It was the spark that rebuilt me. And for the first time, I didn't need to prove anything, because everything I'd lost had led me right here, to peace, to purpose, and to the quiet after the storm.